Welcome to the Jill on Money Show. It's Sunday, September 22nd, and we are here trying to help you make better or less bad financial decisions. We do that by having you go to our website, jillonmoney.com, clicking the Contact Us button. So easy to do. Write us a note, and we'll get that note. That's the email. If you would like to join us live, just check that box. Mark will do everything else. So today we are airing the second part of our interview with Jim McCann. He is the founder and CEO of 1-800-Flowers. If you didn't listen to yesterday's episode, do that first because we get his story. Today, Jim is going to give us a current state of his company and what the future might hold. Hope you enjoy it. What's your market cap now?
700 million or so.
You feel good at that level?
No.
What do you want to be when you grow up?
When we grow up, we want to be valued appropriately, and we'd say one-time sales is a good near-time number, so we should be valued at $2 billion now.
And why do you think you're undervalued? Because you get lumped in with small companies?
No, I think it's partly our own fault, partly a lack of love of smaller cap companies right now. But so I think it's a market cap. I think it's we have to return to growth, and hopefully that happens quite soon. I won't make any announcements now. But, it is what it is. We have a terrific balance sheet. But it's a way you keep score, and I'm not happy with the score right now.
How many employees do you have?
About 5,000.
And when you look at managing people in this environment, people who come into the office versus remote, I mean, you have physical folks who physical locations where people are fulfilling and doing that kind of work, and you need someone there. How do you deal with more of the white collar staff? Do you want them at work? Are you happy with the remote work? Like, how do you see that?
Of the 5,000 people we have, 80 to 90% of them have to show up every day.
Yeah.
We're tending to our orchards, we're picking packages, we're delivering things, so it's not an option. For the small percentage, 10-20, that can work remote from time to time, we have some that are full-time remote, have a very specialized skill. But what are we now? I think we're back to 4 days in and 1 remote across the company, and that seems to work fine.
People are happy with that.
I don't do it. It's not my first choice. I don't like working from home unless I have to, and we all had to. I like the idea of there are a lot of young people, and I like what happens in the dynamic of in-person.
What do you think is the kind of some of the lessons that you learned in management going through the last 5 years, which really were so crazy, really? I mean, we have to say that this was an insane period of time for all of us. But how do you feel as a manager?
You have to learn, and you have to learn to adapt, because if I just said, no, we're all going to the office, it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
It was my temptation, but we didn't do it. And it's been different in different areas. So Manhattan was different than Chicago suburbs, where we have a lot of folks, or Columbus, Ohio, where we have a lot of folks. So you have to bend a little, and you have to realize how you feel about something today likely to be quite different 6 months from now. And you don't realize it because you don't see your kid's hair growing. Yeah. But it's likely to be evolutionary.
So what gets you to work now? I mean, you've made lots of money. You've been a success, arguably a success. Why not say to whoever your kids are, here are the keys. I am going to keep on with my philanthropic mission. What keeps you engaged in this business?
Flexibility. What I mean by that is I had retired, not retired from the job. I retired as a CEO 7 years ago. My younger brother, Chris, 10 years my junior, took over. But a year ago, he developed some health issues and had to retire. And so I came back to see us transition to these young punks.
How's that going?
Pretty good.
Do you have kids in the business?
I have 3 kids, 1 in the business.
And what about Chris's kids?
He has 1 in the business as well.
How do you manage that? Just because you were the child of the owner. I know this is a different scale, but how do you manage bringing someone into a business who's a relation with you, who perhaps, maybe you don't think could be the CEO, but wants to be part of the business? Or do you feel like, no, I want to groom that one of them, him or her, to be the CEO?
We have 2 things. I work a lot with a family in Italy that's a very successful family, and I got to know them 20 years ago and I'm very involved with them. So a couple of things there that I learned from them. One is our kids cannot they have to work while they're in school. They can work for us, but it's not required.
Okay.
But if you don't have your own job, we're going to drag you into the work.
Okay.
So it gives them motivation if they don't want to work for us to go get a real job someplace else.
Yep.
But when they graduate from college, they cannot work for us.
No.
We have a 5-year ban.
Okay.
And they can't apply to come back into one of our companies unless they've achieved something, graduate degree, job success someplace else, been useless for somebody else on somebody else's payroll for a while.
Learn on someone else's dime.
So exactly. So my son James and my niece Jenna have done both. Both of them done that. So they didn't come back right away. My son was probably 10 years ago, and Jenna was recently after she was very successful at J.P. Morgan, working in a private bank. Decided to go back to business school. So she went to a little place up in New England called the Harvard Business School.
I hear they're still in business, amazingly.
Quite effectively. Quite
interesting.
Effectively. And after that, she went to work, I think, for PepsiCo, and she was in the planning and strategy area. And we said, we need strategy work here. And so we recruited her back just a few years ago.
Bidding war for your niece. I like that.
Yeah. So they work in different areas. And I think it's how you carry yourself. And I think people realize that they don't get special treatment. In fact, maybe we expect more of them than other people because we're conscious of them knowing that they have to, that the eyes are on them.
I once
and if they're slacking and not being held to task, people would notice that.
So I want to ask you a funny question. And
we'll decide if it's funny, Jill.
Strange.
Okay.
I had a very dear friend of mine who worked in a big company, and he's a very successful guy. And he says, I have 4 kids, and 2 of them are animalistic, ambitious. 2 of them are not. They grew up in the exact same household with the same expectations. So I'm wondering if you think that ambition is innate or you can help foster it.
I think you can help foster it, and I think it can be innate. I think we all have a bit of ambition. How we tend it, how we nurture it, changes. But I think it's a tougher thing to manage when it's not there.
Right.
You're not old enough to remember, but cars didn't always have power steering.
Oh, wait, my first car did not have power steering. It was my father's 1974 Toyota Celica. 5-speed stick shift, crank those windows, no power steering.
When it was parked, it was hard to turn the wheel.
Yes, it was. It was also very hard to parallel park.
Yes.
With a stick.
You had to keep it going.
With no power, steering.
And no AC.
No AC.
But it's a lot easier to steer that car when it's moving.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same with people and personalities. When you have a little ambition, a little gump, and you have some activity, it's easier to manage those people, and the people are just lethargic and say, nothing to do, no interest in doing anything. How
do you think about this idea that some younger generations think that our generations, right? So I'm in my late 50s, you're in your 60s.
70s.
I said 60s and I winked. You say 60s. That we were very work-first kind of generation, right? We were very tunnel visioned. And I guess I'm wondering how you think about some of the younger generation's view of like, well, we really actually, we don't want to be work first. We want to have a little more balance. Like we want to know our kids more. Or, I'm not willing to make the choice to be so straightforward, single-minded, so that at the exclusion of so many other things. How do you feel about that?
Well, we just did some research on attitudes among millennials. So we partnered with Worth Magazine and BCG Group, and we did something that we'll repeat now, and we'll dig deeper into different slices of it. We called it the Worth Millennial Mindset Report. And we interviewed over 2,500 people, affluent millennials. Okay. So that's a cut.
What is that defined as?
Household income of at least $1 million.
Household income?
Household net worth of at least $1 million.
Because I was going to say income, that's darn good.
Yep.
Okay.
And 25% of them had a household net worth of over $3 million. So that slice is going to skew this, but they were keenly interested in growing their careers. Very conscious of money, very conscious of brand. And although we've heard a lot, and Jill, you've reported on the fact that DEI has gone out of favor to some degree, But if you ask them their attitudes about brands, they're very focused on what's that brand do for its people? Mm-hmm. What does that brand do to the environment, to the climate? Mm-hmm. And they're making their buying decisions based on those two are the most important criteria they use. It's not price and it's not convenience, they say. So I think it still matters to a lot of millennials. And I see it in our office. Everyone told me these people would not work hard. They want this work-life balance, and they were too into themselves. Well, we have a charity that we launched 10 years ago called Smile Farms, and we run it right out of our offices. They sublet space from us, and they're integrated with flowers in a bunch of different ways. And what we do is we create work opportunities and job opportunities and career training opportunities for people with disabilities, like my brother Kevin. Mm-hmm. And so we do mostly agricultural settings now. We have a dozen campuses around the area here where we grow different things. We grow flowers, plants, and somehow we know they're all going to get sold. Mm-hmm. And we run fundraisers to raise money to keep these 500 people working. And you know who does all that horsepower on the work? Those millennials who we were told aren't interested in anything but themselves and wouldn't volunteer their time. They volunteer in droves.
That's great.
So when we run a gala dinner, which we'll be running again this year in November here in Manhattan at the Ziegfeld Ballroom, or we run an invitational golf event at the Meadowbrook Club on Long Island in September, we are overwhelmed by people who want to take a day off on their own dime from the work they do with us to volunteer. And it helps them to have a better social cohesion with us and with one another. It's how we find new employees because a young Joyce will bring her friend who thinks like she does and wants to volunteer her time even though she doesn't work for one of our companies. Mm-hmm. But we get to know her. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, 3 months later, I see her in the office and I said, "What are you doing here?" She says, "Well, I got to know so much about you coming with Joyce to the Smile Farms events. I applied for a job and I just started yesterday." So it attracts like kind of good thinking people. So I think they do work hard. Mm-hmm. I think they are more conscious of a little work balance. They're very conscious of the kind of work they want to do. But I don't see a lack of ambition on their part. I'm not the last one out of the shop anymore.
Yeah. But that's interesting. I also think there's something to learn from them. I know that I feel this way often where I'll sort of have my, I guess I'm like officially Gen X, okay? I'm an old Gen Xer. And
I had someone describe themselves to me last week as a senior millennial.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like an old Gen Xer, but really I have more of a mindset of a boomer probably. And probably even beyond that because I feel like the boomers, like, I didn't have
$53 trillion of net worth transfer in the next 20 years. Wow.
That's going to be a lot. And I think that what's interesting about that is I do think that, there are times where I thought, it is true. Like for many people making these choices, you can be ambitious, but you can also do good. So I can make good money. I can do good things. I can feel good about the prospects. You're not going to be the boss the day you walk into work. And I think that's an overstatement. But I'll tell you what is interesting. I go on very big conference calls at CBS News, sure. Right? And I'm always amazed when I was young, you would not raise your hand and talk about anything. Young, but I mean, like in your 20s, in any big group like that, you keep your mouth shut.
Sure.
And you were sort of like, I have nothing to add, even if you thought in the back of your head you had an idea, but you kept your mouth shut. And I do think that it's nice to be able to hear from people and to hear things. And it may be that what they're saying is foreign to me sometimes, but I listen. And I do listen. And I do listen because I feel like if you don't listen, you don't adapt, then you do get stale. And I think that's the danger when you kind of get into a generational finger pointing. I really do. I think that's sort of like, it doesn't really help anyone. And as you said, it's probably not reality. It's just like this strange way you want to paint a generation, right?
It's kind of easy to do, but it's sloppy.
Yeah, sloppy is exactly right. So what do you think are your next steps for the company besides building the value and growing? Do you see going in different areas at this point?
Yeah, you touched on one before, Jill. I'll come back to that. I think we have to take seriously the fact that we're in the gift business, but the business we're in before we get to a gift is we're in the relationship business. Mm-hmm. So we bought a little company called Smart Gift that you experienced. Mm-hmm. That is, you can send someone a gift digitally, or we can printed in an old-fashioned greeting card that you designed that has your photograph and your signature on it. We'll mail it for you digitally or in the postal mail. That's a new capability we just acquired. The Smart Gift is a new capability. The cards are a new capability. And so we're fleshing out our portfolio to have more ways that people can express and connect, even if there's no transaction involved. So that's a big change for us. So there's lots of things we could go by, and it's easy. And if you're public, it's rewarded.
Yes.
If you're consistently buying things that add, you get rewarded for that. But all of a sudden you look up and you say, am I the company we could have been? And I don't know if you've heard about this thing. I'll try and spell it for you. AI.
Yeah, I've heard it.
My goodness, I'm so convinced that it's as big and as real and as disruptive as we've been hearing. I'm spending a lot of time trying to run with these young punks in my company who know a lot about this. And
Right, because I could like on my phone say, send a gift to Jim to thank him for coming on the pod.
Please do.
Right?
And make it a smart gift.
A smart gift. Or I could even say good, but you would have to, I mean, the AI aspect of this could crank your business in so many different ways.
It can.
And so
I was just talking about it this morning. Customer service.
Yes.
We get lots of awards for being a great customer service company, and we're proud of that. And when we finished Mother's Day, a big Super Bowl kind of event for a florist, we all sat around at about 11 o'clock on Sunday, Mother's Day morning, patting ourselves on the back, sitting around our control center, because we didn't have a single customer service call in queue. We'd gone through the busiest period. Our customers were happy. Our florist partners were happy. Our vendor partners were happy. We had done a great job. And the service level was the best we'd ever done. And then I was the turd in the punch bowl.
That's you.
When I said, guys, congratulations. We did it. It's terrific. And I remember there were 5 ladies on this side of the wall. There were 2 others over here. And I said, but this time next year, all of those customers are going to expect to be able to do all that interacting with us, all by way of voice bot. And jaws dropped. They said, wait a minute.
Dude, it's like you're saying to Patrick Mahomes, you're like, thanks, it was a great job, but anyway, next year we better be here too.
And better.
Yeah.
And so we had a planning session on it this morning, how we're going to use AI to up our game on customer service.
What areas could you see when I think about relationships? I think that you could be in the dating business.
I think Smart Gift has a great application there. Let's say you're a single person, you're going on a date. Let's say it's a guy, and you're going to take out a gal, and you'd like to send her a gift. Well, she says, I really don't know you.
Yes.
And I'm not real keen about giving up my address. Let's have that cup of coffee first. And now he has a cup of coffee, and he really did like her, and he wants to send her some flowers. Now he can send her a Smart Gift, so she's not giving up her address to him.
Right.
She's deciding, does she want it? If she wants it, where does she want sent and when? And she knows that it's blind to the sender about what she chose and where it's going to. So that application is perfect for the dating world. And I would say there's some conversations going on there.
Yeah, I would think so. Okay, so before we finish up, I guess you seem to be a very optimistic person.
Yes.
Would you describe yourself as such?
During
Generally?
the day, optimistic, nervous wreck at night. No.
Well, I was just going to say, you're an optimistic person, so what keeps you up at night?
Are we going fast enough?
Really?
These changes are enormous. They can be completely threatening, or they could be energizing and really allow you to think differently about the business you're in, how you do it. But I live with the idea that in a short period of time, companies are going to be born that are AI native. So I don't look and say, how do I create an AI company? How do I invest in this or that? I do some of that. But mostly I say, how can we be a better flower and gift and relationship company? And so my maniacal focus is, how do we use these tools to be better, more efficient, broader in our services, and more genuinely beneficial to our community of customers who want to have more and better relationships.
So when you look at that as a mantra, how do you infuse the company with that passion? In other words, you're the tone is set at the top. How do you make sure that that is filtering down through senior ranks, middle ranks, people who are, picking pairs?
It's the other way around in our shop that I'm proud to say. Our team was onto AI before I could spell it. and it bubbled up. And so when I learned that there was a group that was already exploring this and thinking about it and doing it on their own, I said to Arnie and to Tom, who's our president of the company and runs everything, and Arnie, who's our chief technology officer, I said, leave that group in place, embrace them, make them the kernel of all of our activity, invite them to invite other people to be part of that circle from other parts of the company, and let that be the hub of everything we're doing, thinking, and learning about artificial intelligence. So there's a guy based in L.A., there's a guy based in Jericho on Long Island, there's teams from Chicago and some virtual people overseas who are meeting regularly. And I said to them, you be the governing force here about where do we go, how fast, how hard, who do we partner with, who don't we? And so that bubbled up. That came to me as a formed idea, and all I did was say, yeah.
Don't go to JillOnMoney.com if you want to order flowers, I'll tell you that much. But do go if you have a financial question, JillOnMoney.com. Click the Contact Us button. Please let us know if you'd like to join us on the air live. Don't forget to sign up for the free weekly newsletter and check out our upcoming webinar Tuesday night, September 24th. Days away, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We are focusing on real estate. It's going to be exciting. We're going to have two, not one, but two guests, a mortgage broker, a realtor. It's going to be great. You can subscribe to us on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen. And of course, do something nice for someone else today. Change your work, change your wealth, change your life. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.